Hi there, I am your mentor, your YouTuber and your friend Ashish Tyagi aka Chris, and I am welcoming you to my channel Ram Tutorials. Okay, and here we are going to teach you something amazing about how does the immune system of a human body try and act against its own. How does a virus, the coronavirus, COVID-19 virus, makes your body against your body's immune system to act against your own protective systems, right? Okay, so before we begin, we have a lot of things going on in the air, like what is self quarantine, what are the guidelines of the self quarantine. There are some guidelines issued by WHO which says that you have to stay inside your house, keep yourself isolated, whatever utensils you are using, food, drinks, whatever things you are using, you have to wash it, you have to keep it separate from your family if you are home quarantine. Okay, and excuse me, right? Okay, one more thing, as to do antibiotics works on COVID-19. We are going to check these things in the following video, right? There are many amazing things we are going to introduce you. What is bacteria about? How does a virus and how does a virus works? How does a bacteria works? All those things, right? So I have to make you yourself clear about the guidelines of the home quarantine kind of things. You have to keep isolated. You don't have to you have to make sure that you don't get into contact with your own home relatives and all that stuff, right? You have to keep your hands away from the knobs. All the family members have to keep away the because these things are very much in use in our house, that they are using the door knobs. These are the many things which many small things which you have to you have to keep in your mind, right? Okay, so we are going to move to the next slide, in which we are going to tell you about an enzyme which act. How does an enzyme act before coronavirus entering into the body, and what does it do, and eventually how does it make the whole immune system to harm yourself, right? So what is the function of this? First of all, what is the name of the enzyme which gets itself mostly infected? It is called angiotensin enzyme 2, abbreviated as ACE2, right? And this enzyme is attached to the membrane. It itself is attached to the cell membranes of lungs, arteries, lungs, arteries, what do you call that, heart, and a kidney, and intestine, right? So here right presently we're talking about there are many symptoms that people are losing their taste of the food, and then they are having lungs problem, then they are having heart problem. So this is all due to this enzyme ACE2, right? When ACE2 get affected due to the entrance of the COVID-19, you get a symptoms like you are losing your you are having breathing problem, you are having heart pumping problems, and eventually you are losing your heart, you are losing your kidney, and then you are losing you are supposed to develop some embolism into your intestine, right? Okay, and what does ACE2 does actually? So it controls the blood pressure, right? And it is used to cure mostly cardiovascular disease, right? And okay, when ACE2 after corona affects your body system, it says that the COVID-19, as soon as the COVID-19 enters into the body, it affects the angiotensin enzyme and converting this enzyme as its receptor, right? The virus copies its RNA. It doesn't have any DNA, right? Okay, virus doesn't have any DNA. We are going to eventually get to it in this particular video. So it actually try to replicate. It surrendered itself to the virus, right? And the enzymes DNA start making the copies of the virus, right? Okay. Okay, moving on. See, I have already told you it is already this angiotensin enzyme is already present in vessels, kidney, liver, gastrointestinal epithelial cell, right? It is already present in there, and it usually do the in lungs. It usually do the the exchange of oxygen and carbon, right? To the at the cell level, it does support the oxygen and carbon dioxide exchange, right? Okay, moving further. Now, how does a bacteria? What is a bacteria? What is the difference between a bacteria? Slightly moving through that concept. Bacteria are prokaryotic microorganisms, and they have their own DNA, they have their own RNA, and what do? They are quite light, and they try to replicate it themselves. Right? They attach themselves on some protein. They have their own protein system, they have their own protein line, right? Okay. Now the characteristics of bacteria is bacteria are unicellular, right? There are unicellular and there are some multicellular bacteria. Bacteria cells lack membrane. It doesn't have any cell membrane, right? Genetic and material remains inside the nucleostide, right? And its nucleus is absent. Bacteria doesn't have any nucleus, but this is the most important thing. Bacteria has ribosome, right? Ribosome is something which generate the protein synthesis, which helps into the protein synthesis, right? So where the protein assembly takes place, bacteria plays a very vital role in ecosystem, right? There are good bacteria, there are bad bacteria, and there are the good bacteria help in the medical system, right? This is the whole structure of a bacteria, as you can see. It has a cytoplasm. It doesn't have any nucleus, right? It has ribosome where the protein synthesis is happening. The DNA, the nucleostide, the DNA copies supply the genome to the ribosomes, and from where this ribosome try to manufacture the protein system. Through the protein system, then it has a cell wall, right? And it has a little tail to it, and which is called as flagella, right? Okay. I've already told you the characteristics and all that stuff, right? Moving on to the next slide. Virus. What is virus? Virus is something which is a connection between dead and the living, right? Dead and the living. Virus is dead until unless it gets a host, right? As soon as it attach itself to the cell of the of the host, as soon as it start to attach itself to the cell of the host, it try to replicate, it try to take control of the machinery of the host, right? So these are the characteristics. Virus like cellular organism like cytoplasm, organelles and cytoplasm. They fail to perform they doesn't have any metabolic activities. Most of the virus contain RNA or DNA. They don't have both. This is the main thing. They don't have both. Either they are RNA based or they are DNA based. Now there are rumors that this COVID-19 virus, the SARS-2 virus, is a DNA based. No, it's not. It's an RNA based, right? And it as soon as it attached to the human host, human body, it try to take away the machinery and it try to replicate itself, right? Virus reproduce at a tremendous pace, but only inside the cell of the living organism. As you can see, it activates itself as soon as it gets a host. Furthermore, most viruses have capability to mutate. It always mutate, like this COVID-19. Americans have a different kind of COVID-19. They are affected with a different kind of COVID-19. Europe is differently affected. Now India is differently affected. Canada is differently affected, right? It is due to because they have like 33,000 base protein base. They have their 33,000 protein base, right? So, and any human can get affected with COVID-19 33,000 times, truly speaking, and it's very amazing, right? They make use of the metabolic machinery of the host cell. Virus cannot grow and divide. They doesn't grow and divide. They actually replicate themselves. They actually mutate themselves. They doesn't replicate, right? They actually, they doesn't divide, right? They doesn't divide like a bacteria does divide, right? They doesn't divide. They replicate themselves. They replicate themselves, and they produce and assemble new viral components inside the affected host cell, right? Moving on to the next cell. Next. Now, what are the basic difference between a bacteria and a virus, right? We have already seen that bacteria is a living organism, while virus is a connection between a living and a dead organism, right? It is dead until and unless it gets a host, right? Okay, so I have put down in a tabular form as to what are the characteristics. Outer cell wall. Does a bacteria has an outer cell wall? Bacteria's cell wall is made up of peptidoglycan, right? It has a cell. Bacteria has a cell wall. Virus do not contain a cell wall. This is to be marked very clearly. Virus do not have a cell wall. Bacteria has a cell wall. As soon as through some antibodies you are going to remove that cell wall, you are going to get rid of the bacteria. That's why that is what the main concept of working of an antibody, right? And virus doesn't have a cell wall, so it doesn't act. These antibodies don't act on them. So virus do not contain a cell wall. The genetic material is enveloped by a protein coat known as capsid. Now, this capsid is very important, and this is troubling. This capsid is troubling many many research which is going on right now on COVID-19. Like Oxford is doing its own studies. Americans are doing its own studies. So this is what is troubling. This capsid is all the trouble, which is making it difficult to make a vaccine, right? Moving on to the size. Bacteria are larger in size as compared to virus, right? They are smaller in size. The virus are smaller in size. Non-living and living, they are living organism, I have told you. Where virus is it's like both, non-living and living. It's dead until unless it gets a host, right? Host dependency. Virus is highly host dependent, while a bacteria is dependent on the living organism, right? And they cannot survive without they can survive without a host, right? The bacteria can survive, but a virus cannot survive without a host, right? Moving on to ribosomes, which is the manufacturing or the factory of the protein synthesis. It is present in bacteria, it is absent in virus. Ribosomes are absent in virus. Moving on to, well, virus already use the protein of a host body, right? This reproduction, virus reproduces asexually by binary function, like getting divide, right? Bacteria always get divide. It's all okay, we can say that it can get binary division or a multiple division. Divisions are of two types, right? Binary and multiple division. But bacteria divides, every cell of a bacteria divided into a two equal daughter cell, right? Now virus insert their genome in the host genome. That is the working mechanism of a virus. They introduce their genome, the copy of their from the RNA into the host cell, and then they control the machinery, and then they multiply their copies. They do not divide, right? Disease, pneumonia, meningitis, food poisoning, typhoid. Okay, these are the kind of disease common cold, polio, smallpox, hepatitis, AIDS, COVID-19, you name them, you keep on naming them, right? RNA and DNA, they have both been present in a bacteria. Bacteria has an RNA or DNA, but either an RNA or a DNA would be present in the cytoplasm. RNA or DNA are enveloped inside a protein coat known as capsid. This is as I told you, this is the only thing which is troubling the researchers, right? Infections, generally localized infections like pneumonia, and generally systematic infections like flu, which takes the whole system of our human body. That is called as a generally systematic infections. Treatment, we can get them treated through antibiotics, vaccine, and antiviral are still on the process. There is no HIV vaccine, there is no COVID-19 vaccine, right? Precaution is the best cure until till now. Examples, right? You can say that chloria is an example, coronavirus, TMV or HIV virus is a common example, right? Each bacteria cell has its own each bacterial cell has its own machinery to reproduce, right? It doesn't depend on the host.